Welcome to the Recliner. My name is Todd Christensen. I am the founder of 50plusonfire.com. Glad to have you with me today. We are talking about firing your credit. Now, you're in your 50s, you may already have excellent credit. Generally, the older we get, the better our credit is on average. It does not mean that you automatically have better credit as you get older. Age is not a factor in your credit rating at all. It's just not allowed by law. It's one of those discriminatory factors that are prohibited. But you may be in your 50s and be struggling currently with your credit, or maybe you've struggled with it in the past and are just not really sure how it works, because that's the way credit is. Nobody seems to know how it works, and that's not true. There are some of us who have spent almost 2 decades working in credit, learning about how credit works, and not from a lender perspective. You might think, well, the only people that know about credit are lenders. Lenders know how their own credit system works. It's true. The majority of loan officers actually fail the credit portion of their qualifications testing. I have heard some horrendous recommendations from lenders, because their purpose is to lend money. They just want to get you qualified in their own system so that you can qualify for a loan. And some of the things that the recommendations I have heard them give end up costing, I think, a neighbor of mine who was told, you don't have good enough credit, so open up 2 new credit cards, max them out for 6 months to the tune of $3,000, $4,000, and then pay, and then we'll get you qualified and get you a loan. Didn't work out. Surprise, surprise, because they ended up having to pay about $400 or $500 in those 6 months just for interest that they couldn't put toward a down payment or closing costs and other things, and it actually hurt their credit. So who do you trust? Look for somebody who is, first of all, an accredited financial counselor through AFCPE. I've been one for a number of years. I think they're just, I think the world of anybody who goes through that kind of a program. Even CPAs are not the ones you should be going to for your credit. They know how to help you with your taxes, but credit is not their thing. They might give you some very good advice, and they typically do. Keep your balances low or at zero. Zero is best. Don't go crazy with your credit. Absolutely true. So let's just and here's the other thing. You can learn to build your own knowledge of credit. It's not that crazy. We're going to go through some basic principles of credit. Okay, so what's the purpose of credit? First of all, here's where the credit industry has really done a disservice to us as a nation, because we think, well, there's the 3 or 5 or 6 C's of credit, and one of the very first ones they always say is character. So your credit rating is an indication of your character. Are you a good person or a bad person? If you have good credit, you must be a good person and responsible. If you have terrible credit, it means you suck. And that really sucks. I get really frustrated when I hear that. I'm supposed to teach that. There are, through a nonprofit that I work for, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, actually says that we have to teach that character is one of the important C's of credit. And I just think that is wrong. Credit has nothing to do with you being a good or a bad person. The whole purpose of credit, the entire purpose of credit, the only purpose of credit is to predict how likely you are to pay your debts in the future on time and as agreed. That's it. It doesn't say anything about how hard you're trying, about how much money you earn or don't earn, about whether you're responsible and can be trusted. No, it has nothing to do with that. It is only, are you likely to pay off your debts in the future as agreed? That's it. Now, is it used for other things? Yes, there are other businesses and industries that have picked up on credit and tried to and are using it for other purposes. But credit is not about your personal responsibility. Think about the person who has undergone overwhelming medical procedures and debts and incurred all these debts, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debts. Are they irresponsible because they can't pay their debts that end up going to collections and maybe even end up in bankruptcy? Is that an irresponsible person? They may have had $50,000, $60,000 in emergency funds, but because it was overwhelming, oh, apparently they're just irresponsible. No, obviously not. We think of credit as, a lot of people think of credit as a snapshot. Oh, well, how do I fix my credit? I need to fix my credit in a hurry. No, it is not a snapshot of your finances. Because credit is attempting to predict future behavior, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. It's not where you're at today. It is a pattern. It's looking at patterns of behaviors over the last 6 months, 2 years, actually up to 7 to 10 years. But the more recent the behavior, the better and more reliable it is to predict future behavior. So you can't just say, well, I'm going to pay off all my debts. I've paid off all my debts. I don't have anything in collections anymore. Why is my credit still bad? Because you're looking at it from a snapshot point of view. It's not a snapshot. It's a pattern of behavior. Yes, your very recent pattern of behavior is awesome. You've paid off all these debts. You've got caught up on your payments. Awesome. Keep doing that. And that will then be a better predictor of future behavior. But it is not a snapshot. Your credit is not based on where you're at today. It's based on all your activities and choices and just things that you've done with credit over the last 7 to 10 years. So let's talk about the difference now between credit reports and credit scores. Because some people just use the term, I have excellent credit, and they think they know what they're talking about, or it sounds like they know what they're talking about. Or even worse, they say, I have perfect credit. Big indicator that person, what they are saying is, I have never been late on a payment, and so I have a probably pretty good credit rating. But there is no such thing as perfect credit. There's no such thing as perfect credit. So if somebody says I have perfect credit, they don't know what credit is. Credit is a predictor of future behavior based on risk. There is always going to be risk when it comes to credit. If you think, well, I have perfect credit, it means you have no risk. And since there is no risk, there's no such thing as perfect credit. You could have an 850 credit score, which is top, king of the credit score number. Your FICO score is 850. Now, if you work really hard to get to 850, you're wasting your time. People get there, but it's a fixation. You don't need to worry about having the perfect credit score. One, it is not perfect. There's always risk. You can have an 850 because you have played the system and you have used this many credit cards and you have done this and that and the other. You buy something on a credit because you know that you have to keep your activity up, and then you step outside of the store and a car runs you over, and that creditor is out of money. They just lost money. There's always a risk for lending money. So no such thing as perfect credit. Credit report is the same thing as credit file, credit record, credit history. Credit report, credit record, credit file, credit history, all the same thing. It is a list of all the things that you've done with credit over the last 7 to 10 years or more. If you have old accounts that are 20, 30 years old and you're still using them, you can have activity on there and information on there from years and years ago. But that's what I should say those accounts will still be on there. And it'll show that they've been they were open 15, 20, 30 years ago. But the activity is only reported for 7 years for negative stuff, up to 10 years for positive stuff. That's your credit record. It's like the teacher grade book from school. If you go back and they have a list of all the assignments that you've turned in, all the homework, all the quizzes, and all the exams, and your final project, and all that. You don't really care about all that because at the end of the month, or at the end of the semester, or at the end of the year, all you want is the grade. So that grade book is like your credit record or your credit report. What you get at the end of the semester is more like the credit score or the credit rating. Now, a lot of people don't understand how credit ratings work. Your credit score, doesn't matter if it's a FICO score, the monopoly of all FICO scores, or a Vantage score, or some other score that's produced by a smaller credit bureau, or consumer reporting agency. That score is produced when it's pulled. You don't have a score sitting in the background just waiting to be pulled. It is generated when you pull your score. And it's based on whatever is on your credit report, credit history at that time. So yesterday you could pull a report, pull your score, and you have a 780. And today you could pull it and it has a 781 or a 785 or a 760. How can it change so much in one day? Because maybe there was something that was reported overnight or on the day that you pulled it. Just depends. So that's what a credit score is, and credit record, credit report, credit record, credit file, credit history, and what a credit score or a credit rating is. And the only two credit scores, really the only one you really need to worry about when you're borrowing money, is the FICO score. Vantage score is making progress as far as who's using it and for what purposes. But when it comes to things like home loans, for example, 99% of scores are still going to only be the FICO score, which FICO, by the way, stands for Fair Isaac Company. Mr. Fair and Mr. Isaac back in 1956 got together and they started a business, called it Fair Isaac and Associates, then Fair Isaac Company, eventually created a score that became known as FICO, Fair Isaac Company or Co. Okay. Does credit still matter in your 50s? You're 50, 53, 54, 58. Does it still matter? Yes. Now, even if you're not borrowing money, let's say you're not going to, you already have a mortgage, or you're about ready to pay off your mortgage, you're not going to get another one. What about maybe buying a rental property? Unless you've had a business buying rental properties for years and building its own credit, they're going to likely use your personal credit. So there's that. There is your insurance, car insurance, homeowners insurance, life insurance, personal life insurance policies. They base a portion of their premium on your credit rating. This is not the time to go into why that is. But just accept that this is about 10 years ago, 95% of insurance companies used credit as a factor in your premium, monthly premium. Now it's probably 99%. If you have better credit, the studies show that you're less likely to file large claims. There are studies that show that you get into more accidents if you have poor credit. As a group, not an individual. The same thing with all the other factors that are involved with insurance. Gender, men get into more accidents than women. Well, that doesn't mean that if you're a man that you're going to get in an accident. Married people get into fewer accidents than single people. If you live in a rural place, a rural area, you're going to pay a higher insurance premium than somebody in an urban area. And as you get older, your insurance rates go down. That doesn't mean that when I got my first car, it was a two-door British sports car. It's only called a sports car. It has two doors and it was a convertible. It went 80 miles an hour downhill with the sail up. But that doesn't mean that I was a bad driver just because I was 22 years old, 21 years old, a male, single, but my insurance premium was through the roof. I paid more every year in liability insurance only than I did for the actual vehicle. And that's just the reality of insurance. More employers are using credit, but they're not using your score. They're including your credit report in the hiring process. I work for a nonprofit employer, and regulators require that my employer does a background check on me regularly every couple of years, and included in that is my credit history. Property managers, if for some reason you wanted to live in an apartment, most property managers are going to say, well, if you don't have a 650 or 670, or where they're going to set their own number for the credit score. If you don't have at least that score, don't even bother applying because you're not going to get approved. And then there are things like investment brokerages might, if you're going to be borrowing money to on the margin and investing on the margin, they might require to look at your credit and have a certain level of credit. There's a lot of other little smaller reasons why, but those are the big ones. So what you want to do, why it matters in your 50s, credit still matters in your 50s, even if you are not buying anything on credit. You want to maximize or minimize your spending as much as possible so that you can maximize your investments. Now, if you've been following 50 Plus on Fire, you know that I'm a big proponent of passive income generators, what I call PIGs, PIGs. And because a lot of us that entered our 50s not ready for retirement and not on track for retirement, there's no way we can get caught up by maxing out our 401ks and IRAs. They're just, for many of our households, many of us, there's just no way we can get caught up. So you want to minimize your spending in the household as much as possible so that you can put as much money as you can toward these PIGs, these passive income generators, that you can set up so that they will generate extra income above and beyond your regular full-time employment. Then these will grow and have you ready so that by the time you're 58, 60 years old, maybe 62 if you want to take advantage of Social Security, some Social Security, you will be ready to retire early even. And so that's a whole nother video and I do want you to go to 50plusonfire.com. So that's 50plusonfire.com. 50plusonfire/credit, and you can learn more about how to fire your credit in your 50s, because you're going to want to pull your credit at annualcreditreport.com. You're going to want to go through it and learn, well, what am I looking for? Because there are every credit consumer reporting agency, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, has a different format for their credit reports. And you're going to want to know, well, what am I looking for under the identifying information? Is any of that actually change my credit score? Spoiler alert, no. You're going to look at your trade lines. That's the most important. But they don't call them trade lines. They might call them potentially negative accounts, or accounts in good standing, or just some other accounts. You want to look at your public records. It used to include a lot more than what it does now. Now it's just bankruptcy. It used to include judgments, used to include tax liens, Not anymore. It's just bankruptcy. You're going to want to know, well, it gives me an opportunity to put on a personal statement. 100, 200 words because of COVID and some of the things happening during the pandemic. They now give us 200 words to put to explain something on our credit. Do you want to do that? There are some times when you do want to explain some sort of thing, something that you are trying to dispute and you're having a hard time getting resolution. And there are other things that you just want to leave lie. It does not affect your credit, that statement, but you do not want it to bring up information or bring up questions from the lender if otherwise you can just leave it alone. Negative stuff that's on there, it's just going to be on there. Don't try and explain it away and justify why and this, that. Hey, I was in the hospital. You know what? You may have been, but you just don't want to bring up negative stuff or emphasize negative stuff. If you want a free credit, now that's annualcreditreport.com. That's where you get your free credit report. Every year, by law, the Fair and Accurate Credit Transaction, or the FACT Act, that went into effect it was passed in 2003, went into effect in 2004, gives us a free credit report from each of those 3 credit bureaus, well, any credit bureau, every 12 months. So you can get one now, another one tomorrow, another one the next day, and then you wait a year from today and start over. Or you can do it, what I usually recommend is about every 4 months you get a new one. During the pandemic, through April of 2021, the credit bureaus are offering this every week. Take advantage of it. It doesn't hurt your credit. Anybody who says pulling your credit hurts your credit doesn't know what they're talking about. It does not. Absolutely. Pulling your own credit. Well, I had somebody say, no, that's not wrong. You are lying to people. And I talked to him after the class that he was in. I said, well, why were you saying that? What is it that's, because he was adamant. He was upset with me. He says, I pulled my credit. And every time I pulled it, it would go down. I said, well, where were you pulling your credit? My brother worked at a bank, and so he was pulling my credit to help me. I said, duh. I didn't say that. If a bank pulls it, it's going to come across as looking like you're getting ready to borrow money. That's called an active inquiry, and that is going to have a small negative effect on your credit. Pulling your own credit report through annualcreditreport.com has absolutely zero impact on your credit. It does not come with your score. What if you wanted a credit score? What if you want to look at your FICO or your Vantage score? You have to go somewhere else. You can pay for it. You can go to myfico.com and pay $20, $30, $40 a month for a subscription. Don't do it. I love FICO. I would never pay for something like that. It's for people who are fixating on their FICO score. You don't need to fixate on it. So what you want to do is just go to something like mint.com or nerdwallet.com, where you can get a free credit score. It's Vantage score, but you can get it every day if you want it. Okay, fixation. There are places like Discover Card or American Express or other credit card companies. I think Capital One, their CreditWise app. You don't have to have a card through them. They will give you a free credit score, and quite often that will actually be a FICO credit score once a month. You're not going to get a free credit score more than once a month if it's a FICO. You can get a Vantage score fairly regularly, and what I do is that I just say, look for patterns. Is your credit score going up or is it going down? Are you expecting it to go up and it's going up? Great. Are you expecting it to go down? It's going down? Not great, but at least you know you expect it. If it goes down and you did not expect it to go down, that's when you have to pull your credit report and say, okay, what's going on? Is there activity on there that I didn't know about, or that's fraudulent? Maybe somebody's stolen my identity. That's when you want to look at your credit report if your credit score is doing things unexpectedly. Okay, again, check out more at 50plusonfire.com/credit. I got a great post there for you. A lot more details even than this here. I'd love it if you would please subscribe to this YouTube channel, like this video, share it with your friend. There's a share button right there. Put it on your Facebook feed, because guaranteed you've got friends that have no idea what they're doing when it comes to credit, and they wish they did. Please feel free to share this. I'd love it if you would. And again, Todd with 50plusonfire.com. Join me again from the recliner. Until next time, happy rocking.